I'm David Rhinelander. Welcome to Democratic Dialogue. My guest today is Ron Wiggins, who has a very interesting history here and off Cape Ann. So, Ron, why don't you just give us a background?
Yes. So my name is Ron Wiggins. I've been in Gloucester now for a little bit over a year, on Cape Ann for 7 years total. I'm a transplant. Moved here from Ohio due to a transfer with my job. Was 17 years in Ohio, and before that my career had taken me from the West Coast all the way back to the East Coast. I'm very active in the Gloucester Democratic City Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Previously, I was on the Rockport Democratic City Committee. Background a little bit more. My dad was in the service.
Your European background is fascinating.
Yeah.
Even though this is Cape Ann, we still know there's the rest of the world. So,
Okay. So my dad was in the Army, World War II, and met my mother in Germany. She was German native. They got married in Germany. She came to the United States, was a naturalized citizen. I lived in North Carolina for the first 6 years of my life. And then my parents ended up separating and ultimately having a divorce. So my mother moved back to Germany. Right. That being said, I spent my entire youth going back and forth between Germany and the United States.
Fascinating. Yeah. This was when, in the, what date, sort of, 70s?
Moved to Germany in 1963.
Okay.
And then I...
60s and 70s, yeah.
Yeah, 60s and 70s.
Okay.
Graduated from German high school. So that was an experience. Still have a lot of contacts in Germany. Still have a sister who lives in Germany, a niece and a nephew. So I tend to travel over there quite. I try.
You still do, yeah, good.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So I've been exposed to, let's call it, European culture, as well as American culture. And these days, that's an interesting proposition with some of the feedback that you get when you travel over there, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. The ugly American syndrome is up again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I grew up in Boston and Summit here, so my world has been about this big, and yours has been this big, but it's fascinating. So why don't we just talk, you were in Germany recently, or you go back and forth. What's the view of America right now?
Well, American politics, I think we have to separate the American politics as they exist today.
Yeah, and the point of today, obviously, is to talk about the election, which is coming up on the 6th of November. So, but I'm just interested in what to begin with, what the image of America is at the moment.
Well, the image is, I want to say, to a degree the same as it always has been. Okay. There is a appreciation of America, the United States, the democracy that we are, the freedoms that we do have.
Okay. So that's still appreciated, yes.
That is appreciated.
Very important, yeah.
However, there is a big amount of fear when we look at the current government as it exists and some of the policies that are driven by that government overseas. It ranges anywhere from fear to being ridiculed.
Yeah.
So it is something that we have to consider. The one thing there is not is a desire for a long-term establishment of the government as it is today.
I hope that isn't true in this country. And this is, in fact, the topic of today. We want to talk about getting out the vote. But this is a midterm election, so we usually have fewer people voting than in the presidential years. But we've got to pay attention to the midterms and why it's important for us as Democrats to get out the vote. So let's go right into that for a minute.
Sure.
The statistics are clearly the Republicans get out more vote in midterms than we do, and I just wanted to talk about that for a few minutes.
Yeah, if you look at Massachusetts and in the last 4 election cycles, the presidential election years versus the midterm years, there's been approximately more than 900,000 voters that go to and cast a ballot in Massachusetts. So it's a strong discrepancy in the numbers. However, it becomes even more magnified the fact that the Republicans do a better job at getting their voters to go to the polls in the midterms versus what the Democrats do.
GOTV, as we say, get out the vote. Yeah,
get out the vote, exactly. And that's not just a Massachusetts issue. That's something that exists in Ohio. You see that, or in most other states, where the Democrats are somewhat, call it, disorganized when it gets to the midterms and more organized when it gets to the general election and presidential years. What we've seen in this cycle is a lot of energy, however, and I think that's what we need to focus on. When I say energy, we are seeing a lot more younger voters coming to the Gloucester headquarters, for example, or coming to our meetings. We are seeing a lot of energy with women candidates as well as volunteers.
Good point.
If you look at some of the canvassing efforts that are going on, and I've participated in numerous canvasses here over the last 4 to 6 months, canvas as well as signature collections, it is probably 80-90% female participation in those activities.
Oh, wow.
Versus male.
Okay.
And a lot of the ladies you talk to are very clear. It's the first time they've ever done anything in elections.
Political activities.
In political activities. There are a lot of new people coming on board, of both gender, but a lot more female. And it's very good to see. A lot of participation. And if you look at some of the candidates that are running these days, especially in Massachusetts, a lot more female participation.
Yes, exactly.
Which is a good thing.
Absolutely. And younger people too, which is also very important.
That is correct, yes.
In what you, going around town, what's the feeling? I mean, are the Democrats really beginning to think about getting out the vote, or is it the usual, we should vote, but maybe we won't?
There's a lot of good, positive energy. In some of the canvassing efforts and discussions that I've had, I have seen a lot of people being aware of the candidates, but not necessarily aware of the deadlines, whether it's the when's the last day to vote, or to register to vote, excuse me. When is the election actually? People did not know that it's on November the 6th, so we've been able to remind those people and have those discussions with people. So hopefully that effort will pay off and we'll have a lot higher participation in the midterms. I mean, one thing you have to look at, go back. Charlie Baker only won by 40,000 votes in a state like this. If more Democrats had shown up potentially, we would have a different governor.
When is the registration over? It's
the last day to register is, and I have it in my notes here, so excuse me.
I have the same thing.
It is the 27th of October.
Right. So we've got a little way to go, but and that's very important to register.
Make sure you register. Make sure,
and you can cast absentee ballots and that sort of thing.
Well, we have early voting from October the 22nd through November the 2nd.
Okay. Oh, is that right? October now. Okay.
So you can vote early. You would have to go to your city hall typically, and I would ask anybody who does want to vote early that they check with their local city hall, because local municipalities do have a little bit different rules, so that date might float one way or another.
Town hall or city hall, right?
Town hall or city hall, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, but it's very important to make sure that people know that they can still register and exactly how they can get out the vote. And that's what the Democratic City Committee is doing now, and you've been working on some of that.
Yes, so you can come by the headquarters on 2 Duncan Street in Gloucester. We have registration forms available to folks there, or they go up to City Hall and register there as well.
And the same thing in Rockport?
Same thing in Rockport. Okay. Yeah, well, we are consolidating the Cape Ann effort.
There's only one headquarters.
One headquarters, so that's for Essex, Rockport, Manchester by the Sea, and Gloucester.
Right. But you can go to your town hall and
You can go to your town hall, or you can come to the headquarters, and we'll make sure that the forms then get delivered to the appropriate
okay.
town or city hall.
And how does it seem? You've been doing some of that work. Are we registering more voters than usual? Is there that kind of feeling?
I couldn't give you data from the last time because I wasn't that active the last time.
Mm-hmm.
There are quite a few people who have registered, whether it's at the headquarters or...
But they've come in and asked about it, yeah.
Yep.
Good.
The street bazaar, we had some registrations,
Yes.
for example.
Yeah, I didn't do that this year, but I've done that in the past,
Yeah.
yeah.
The street bazaar was very informative as well. A lot of good dialogue going on, and that included dialogue with Republicans, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that stopped by the booth. And we had some good conversations, actually.
Yeah.
So it's not all divisive.
Smiled or sneered at us?
It was mostly positive.
Yeah, good.
It was a viewpoint one way or
Well,
the
it
other.
should be. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. There was a dialogue going on.
Good. That's exactly what you want in politics. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I think the candidates are good. So I think I hope we'll get out the vote. And clearly, as you say, the history of Massachusetts of not doing so, like the old, who was it, the successor of Teddy Kennedy?
Scott Brown.
Scott Brown. I mean, that was, yeah.
Yeah, that was a prime example of
Absolutely.
Democrats not showing up to
Exactly,
vote.
that's all it was, yeah. What do you hear of the issues when you're going around town and being at headquarters? What are people talking about for issues?
The issues, most people are not aware of the ballot issues that exist,
Yes, we
that
were
are on the
talking
ballot.
about the three
Yes.
things questions on the ballot, right?
So we have the nursing staffing issue,
Right.
with certain restrictions on the amount of patients that a nurse can have in a specific facility.
Each department of the hospital as well. Yeah.
Right. It depends on whether it's
Right.
ICU, whether it's
Right.
standard care, whether it's a psychiatric facility.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would encourage everybody to go online and look up the ballot. That one is something that you really have to read up on and
Yes.
maybe inform yourself on.
And I know from I was an old medical writer in the newspaper business. It's somewhat complicated, and the hospitals have taken a different point of view, saying that the nurses union is trying to push too much, and the nurses are saying the hospital are trying to, make as much money as they can. So it is a two-sided question, and I mean there are two clear sides to it.
Yeah, so everybody needs to really
They
read
really
up
oughta-
upon it and make
Exactly.
a decision whether they vote for it or against it, and look at the opinions. So if they have nurses in their circle of friends and acquaintances, maybe ask them for their opinion.
Yeah.
Read up on it. That would be very important.
Yes.
The same to the second ballot question, which is to try to initiate a amendment to overturn Citizens United.
Yes.
That one's an obvious one, I think.
Yes.
How do we get big money and dark money out of politics? That's something that is very current. We need to look at that, that's for sure. And then the third one is...
Wait a minute, before we leave that
Okay.
one, there's been talk about needing a constitutional amendment, U.S. constitutional amendment to stop...
Yes, so they
Is
would
that-
want to initiate a constitutional amendment.
That's all, yeah. It's not, it won't, the vote here won't change that yet. It'll initiate a constitutional amendment, is that right?
Correct. We'd have to then partner with other states,
Yeah, to
obviously, to
get
go
the-
through the amendment process.
Right, yeah, okay. And the third one is...
The third one is the protection of the current law for transgender
anti-discrimination.
and
yeah.
anti-discrimination to maintain it or to reject it.
Yeah. And a lot of people, actually, when you go in and start voting, it's a long sheet in Gloucester or here, and not everybody reads all the way down. They sort of vote. They look at the top and say, yes, I vote for him, vote for her, and they leave the bottom alone. So actually, we've got to ask people to really, going into the thing to do is there's a copy of the ballot on the on the door or the wall as you go in, and you really ought to look at the whole ballot before you actually go and
Correct.
get the thing.
And if you
go
don't
through it.
vote, if you don't vote on those issues, you're missing an opportunity. I think you bring up a great point that you vote for the I call them the shiny object
Yes.
votes. The high visibility votes, whether it's for Senator Warren, for example, or Seth Moulton in this district, or any other Democratic candidate in for the House of Representatives, for example. But there are other issues that we have to take advantage of as a voter to exercise that right. And that's something that circles right back to the midterms and how important it is. So through our efforts, whether it's through the GDCC or the Mass Democrats, we are out there. We are trying to make sure that everybody is as informed and has all the facts as much as possible. That's important. There's a lot of noise going on in today's world, on social media,
Yes.
and sometimes it gets very hard to manage what are the true facts versus what is just noise and you should put to the side and ignore more or less. So that's something that we're focused on.
And the noise distracts people. I mean, they say, "Oh, I'm not going to go there; it's so noisy," and they don't take the time to go through the noise and really look at the issues. That's very true.
Yeah, and it's not just the issues on a ballot, it's the fact that we have to make sure that people are interested to go vote, to exercise their right. And go back to the numbers, the midterm apathy that Democrats very often display is something we have to look at, and we have to make sure we are properly communicating the need to go out and vote in midterms.
Yeah, absolutely.
More so than ever, because we lose a lot of elections in the midterms through that apathy.
Yes.
And that's something we have to combat.
And you are volunteering and through Democrat headquarters. I've been doing some, my wife's been doing some, and we're always looking for more volunteers to come down to Democratic headquarters and do some of the things that, why don't you talk about some of the things you've done through the Democratic headquarters?
Well, through the city committees, we're active within the communities. There's a legal aspect to it that we are a political entity.
Yes.
So whether it's at the city level, at the state level, or at the federal level, we are active with that, encouraging people to sign up, to volunteer, to help out. We go out and we canvass. We designate...
which means knock on doors.
Knocking on doors and talking to people.
Sometimes it's fabulous. Sometimes they sort of say, "Oh, no, I don't want to talk to you," and shut the door on you. But it's...
Well, to be honest, we have the ability today with certain apps to target specific groups.
More and more, yes.
Yeah, information that's in the public sphere.
And we also see a lot of, because we've both done it, we talk to a lot of Democrats who say, "Oh, well, yes, I'm a Democrat, but I just haven't voted lately."
Right, and those are the people we target.
We want to get
we want to go after people who haven't voted. They might be a registered Democrat or a independent.
Independent, yes.
And they haven't voted in 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 cycles.
Right.
And that's the voter. Those are the voters we want to talk to, and that's what we do with our applications.
Yeah.
Another thing we do through the committees is we have monthly meetings. The second Thursday of every month here in Gloucester. At the Gloucester House. Anybody is welcome to come on in, sit in, listen in, and then of course they can join if they so desire. And we would vote them in immediately at that meeting.
And that's a sad thing too. A lot of people who vote Democratic don't come and join the Democratic City Committee or the town committee wherever they live. And that, being at that level, can help turn the ship, steer the ship a little bit. So it's important to be active in the local Democratic level. But
absolutely, and we always have good guests. I mean, we've had our congressman attend. Matter of fact, he'll be at the headquarters on September 29th. I want to say it's a Sunday. Is it 29th or the 30th? Okay. The last Sunday in September, 10 o'clock in the morning.
So 30th, yes.
30th, excuse me.
Congressman Moulton, yes.
Moulton will be there. Yeah. He's going to kick off a canvass here, and then he's going to go on to other cities that day. Mm-hmm. So he's going to hit whatever the number is, quite a few. Mm-hmm. But during the standard city committee meetings, we have guests at all time who come in. They might be candidates in primaries, in the primary season, or now, as we've moved beyond the primaries, we would have other guests at times leading up to that. Then when the election cycle is a little bit, when it's over, we would still have guests at times. And
we talk about issues in between, which is really fascinating. I mean, there are some very interesting people who come to these dinners, and you get truly very different sides. I remember, in fact, not several years ago, one of the things that was clear to us, this head of the state Democratic Committee came down, the Gloucester Democrats, the Cape Ann Democrats, don't think the way the mid-state Democrats do. So there are divisions within the Democratic Party in the Commonwealth that we have to bring together at elections and things. And it's really interesting. And more than that, I mean, the New England Democrats, the Massachusetts Democrats are quite different from the Ohio Democrats, or as you said, from around the country. So there are very, very. It's not the way it used to be with just the Southern Democrats. I mean, there are different views, and we've got to help trying to work all of this together so that we don't necessarily have to agree with everything everybody says, but we ought to support the Democratic point of view, and sometimes that takes work. So
you hit an interesting point there that the Democrats are not a homogenous group.
Absolutely,
we have a lot of different viewpoints, and that's important. And I think that's a strength of the Democratic Party.
I think it's important to keep it exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But we need to take that strength, and I'm going to circle back to the midterms.
Sure.
Take that strength and that divisiveness that we have within our own party, mm-hmm. and channel it at certain times so that we as Democrats succeed, and don't let the Republicans have that advantage in the midterms in particular.
But of course, they're some division of the Republican Party now too, which is
that's a different development here over the last couple of years, obviously. But in the past, and still as a whole, they have lesser issues. And when I say lesser issues that they address,
I mean inter-party issues.
Inter-party issues, yes.
Well, I can remember, when Goldwater and people like that, they were considered by people here in Massachusetts, they were considered to be bizarre Republicans. So it does happen, fortunately for us.
True. One could argue whether the current head of the Republican Party is a true Republican in the sense as it's historically been.
Exactly. Yeah.
And one can then also look at traditional Republicans, but as they've been, whether they're called rhinos these days or not. So they have their own issues, correct? But we as Democrats, we're a very diverse group.
Yes.
And I want to take that as a strength and not as a weakness. I want to channel that strength to the polls, really.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, I remember when there were Dixiecrats who were really a totally separate party. I mean, it was the Dixiecrat and the New England Democrat didn't talk to each other, sort of thing.
Right, and a Dixiecrat today would be a Republican.
That's right, exactly.
If you think about it. So times have changed, and it's an evolution. So
yeah. And I think it's fascinating. I mean, I like to get into political discussions, and I really think we can, as Democrats, I think we can help middle of the road people or even Republicans think through what's going on and vote come our way. So
sure. And so it's not just about Democrats; it's about independents, about
right.
Republicans. It's about dialogue.
Yeah.
And we have to continue that. I'll go back to my Ohio time, the 17 years I spent in Ohio, and the majority of my friends being Republicans out there. We always have great discussions.
Yes.
And at the end, we're still friends.
And you still do have discussions, yeah.
And we still have discussions. And we will continue to have discussions.
Yeah. I think I like political discussions, but and I really think many of them lead down the right road. Not all. I mean, sometimes people shut the door, as I say, no, the hell with that, I don't talk to you anymore. But
it's okay to have a difference.
It is. Well, we need a difference in this country.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't all want to be the same.
We don't want to dictate it. Yes, right.
So.
Yeah. And I think the Democrats will do all right this time. I really do. I think there seems to be a growing feeling that in fact we may win enough seats in the Congress this time to really make it tough on on the Republicans for the next few years, which would be very nice if that happened. But,
And we need to do that, and that goes right back to the overall theme of channeling that energy and taking that energy to Washington,
yes.
and to put some checks and balances up there that currently are not happening. And we see that whether it's through the Kavanaugh nomination and subsequent push
Yeah.
to get him nominated as soon as possible, while ignoring history with delaying these things when there is a
When they've already done it on the other side, exactly.
Exactly. Or just any of the other checks and balances that are not occurring,
Yeah.
in my opinion, these days,
Yeah.
that we need to look at and really say, we, the Democrats, have a responsibility to make sure that this government doesn't go off the rails completely.
That's right. And I think one of the things that Congressman Moulton has been doing since he's been down there is talking to the other side. I think it's important to talk to Republicans under the right circumstances. Talk with them instead of just sort of shutting the door. And I think Seth's been very good at that. So,
Correct. Yeah.
I think it's very important. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think this is a fascinating. I mean, the gap right now is enormous, but I think working on the political scene right now is really fascinating. There aren't very many bored people on either side in any direction.
That is true. And I'll be honest, I wasn't as active 2 years ago as I am now.
No, I wasn't either. Yeah.
The election 2 years ago in 2016 really drove me to become more active.
Yeah.
I see that energy out there. I see other people becoming more active. That's all good. And that's something that shouldn't just be at this time. It should be in our society that you embrace
all the time. Yeah.
the right and the
Yes.
privilege
Yeah.
to be able to vote.
Yeah.
And that we bring those numbers up. That's very important.
Yeah.
And the midterms is super important this time around, but they should all be super important, and we should all think of it that way, not just this is a small election, I don't need to go, or I'm
Yes.
too busy that Tuesday.
Or I don't care.
Or I don't care.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
To get away from that apathy.
Yeah.
I would hope that 100% of the eligible voters go out and vote every time. That's not realistic.
That's a big wish, but that's a big wish.
But if you could get it up in the 80 percentile range, that would be a tremendous success.
Okay, so the number we have to pound right now is the 6th of November, right?
6th of November. Yeah.
All right. And
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Vote.
It's and absolutely, I really think it's important. And listen, I've had a very nice conversation with you, and I hope this will help people think about voting and remember really truly to vote every 2 years. So.
Every 2 years and everything in between.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Thank you, Ron. Very, very interesting. I think this has been I think we've had a good chat, and I hope it's been useful for all of you who've been watching. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.